I'm Steve Lascalzo. This is The Way. Welcome to summer. Temperatures are in the 90s every day down here at This is The Way podcast headquarters, including right now. My two most recent May the 4th special episode guests are out of school, and the Bad Batch is done, and the Acolyte is almost here. You're listening to the May 2024 This is The Way podcast Star Wars News Update podcast. Last month we had some feedback, and I hope Daniel received my response well. If you have comments you'd like to share with me or the listeners, stay tuned for the end of the podcast where I usually share contact information for the show, and I will again.
Great kids, don't get cocky.
It is time to update you on Star Wars news since the last News Update podcast. The Acolyte is less than a week away from a debut. This is the Way podcast will not be reporting on the show weekly. Sorry. But I will watch the show first and then consider some coverage. There are several articles and features for characters of the show on the web. But when I say less than a week away, I'm talking June 4th, 2024. So there's a chance that you hear this podcast after episodes are already streaming. The show debuts on Tuesday on Disney+, but some cities are hosting theatrical release parties on June 3rd, the Monday before. Now, there aren't many locations per state, and since tickets are free, some locations, like one of the two Florida locations, are already sold out. So by the time you hear this, there may not be any tickets left in your neck of the woods. In addition, some more details about the show are coming out, including a secret about one of the main characters. And this is not something that people have speculated about, but this was officially released by the Disney-owned ABC show Good Morning America. Now, it's going to be hard to avoid spoilers, but since I am not covering the show initially, well, it's probably a little bit easier for me to keep official reveals to a minimum, so I won't talk about that spoiler to the plot. If you're interested in seeing if there are still tickets available for that June 3rd special screening near you, go to X, formerly known as Twitter, and seek out the recent post by @StarWars. While some Star Wars fans are gearing up for a new show, those that came to love The Bad Batch are grieving the end of the run for the animated series. The 3-season run came to a close earlier this month, and there weren't any unexpected canon adjustments in the show. The foreshadowing of a connection to Project Necromancer was fulfilled, but there was no reveal for characters like Rey, or Din Djarin, or Grogu in this show. I'd have to say the biggest surprise for me was that a character that met an end in Season 2 didn't end up coming back to the show. I thought for sure they were going to resurrect one of the main characters, but while This is the Way podcast might someday cover the show, I have to admit, I didn't much care for Season 3, and that doesn't preclude coverage. It's just, I didn't think the writing was great, I didn't think the stories told were that interesting, and there wasn't much interest in it from people in my cultural circle. So I just don't have as much incentive to rush coverage. Many of my friends, you have to understand, not all, many of my friends don't care for the animated series. Now, that didn't bother me, but it is a hard sell to some of my friends. And when I can't get excited about it, I'm not a good representative of it. And it's not like I was when I was talking up Andor.
He speaks the truth.
That series is much easier to get excited about, and so much easier for me to spread the word. Adria Arjona portrayed Bix in that show. Recently, in 2024, she was doing press for a movie that she's in, and she talked about her character having more complex of a journey than in Season 1 and Season 2. That's good news, because that character had two things working against it from my point of view. Yeah, I know. She had an arc, she was tortured, and she was supposedly kind of like a love interest a little bit to Catherine, but we don't hear a single word about her in Rogue One or elsewhere in Star Wars. Her purpose also seems already served. other than helping get Cashin off the planet, what was there for her to do? It would be nice to see the character mean more to some of those people that support Cashin Andor at the very least. She doesn't have to be fleshed out completely, but showing us why she was important to helping him get off the planet and get motivated. If she says much more complex, I think that's one way to do it, is show how much more she's important. And that might mean having her meet a tragic end. Now, I'm going to temper my opinion with a reminder. I firmly believe in Tony Gilroy's writing, so even when I don't like where things are going in Star Wars, I appreciate his talent in telling stories more than I do some of the other showrunners. Andor's second season will likely start debuting on Disney Plus in 2025, but no date has been set, at least as of the recording of this podcast.
There we go.
You know what will debut this year? Skeleton Crew is supposed to come out in December of this year, according to several reports online, even though it also does not have an official release date yet. The first product being sold for the show isn't a toy, but a collectible. Seller Fanatic calls it an ingot, and StarWarsNews.net managed to save an image of it before it was removed from online places, and it's got pictures of some of that skeleton crew on the ingot. There's also an unknown droid very prominent on that piece, but again, it's not a toy. And I couldn't even find a mention of what material the ingot is made of, or if it's even a metal. The Acolyte already has several versions of action figures. But this much more kid-friendly show that is supposed to be, having a release date close to Christmas has 0 so far. When there are some, you could bet we'll tell you about it in our collectibles corner.
Don't you ever want to do anything exciting?
Okay, Star Wars gamers. I said I wouldn't mention Star Wars Hunters again until there was a release date. Guess what? It's almost here. The mobile and Nintendo Switch game will become available June 4th. There's still time to pre-register as of the recording of this podcast, and to do that, you'll need to visit StarWarsHunters.com. If you do that and you pre-register, actually, for the game, you're going to get a few exclusives when the game goes live. Probably just all cosmetics and minor boosts. Nothing mind-blowing. But hey, I said I wasn't going to talk about this game until there was an official release, and the game is getting released. Finally. Right?
Yeah. Good.
Now, I am aware of player mods for a game called Helldivers 2. That's a video game that has a reskin made by players that makes much of the game look more like Star Wars, but I don't play that game. And if those mods eventually become available for download and public use, maybe I will revisit it. That is big news because it does make the game look really sharp. But I'll tell you this, if you want Star Wars content right now, there's still content available to achieve in LEGO Fortnite. I managed to unlock everything in the LEGO Star Wars Pass made available by Epic, so I used some of the V-Bucks that I've accumulated to unlock a premium pass, and then you can get Chewbacca and a lot of Mos Eisley builds. If you've been meaning to give this game a try, now would be a great time because the Star Wars content gives you a leg up. It makes resources available to you in a much smaller area, so you don't have to travel as far to experience all of the different biomes that are available, and you have to build in those different biomes in order to unlock more content. So if you're interested in the game, you can talk to Captain Bavara when you load into LEGO Fortnite, go through a Rebel cave, start building a Rebel base before you even build a single structure, or pick up your first wood or granite. Or pick your first raspberry or pumpkin.
There is much work to attend to.
If you don't know what I'm talking about, well, give LEGO Fortnite a try. It is free to play by Epic Games, as well as other Fortnite game modes.
This is the way.
Total War or Warhammer fans, I recommend visiting StarWarsNews.net and checking out Grant Davis's May 19th post. I know. I'm supposed to be the newsman, right? Well, he writes an in-depth article about the plans for the team at Creative Assembly that's relating to a Star Wars RTS game. It does not sound like the game is the top priority of the company at the moment, but Davis wrote, and I'm going to quote him here, "A Total War Star Wars game appears to be Creative Assembly's endgame for their current set of projects, and the one that they have the most confidence in its ability to sell and turn into a sub-franchise, but it's also the furthest away." As more details become available and as other projects start to complete and that gets closer to being underway, I will cover it in future Star Wars News Update podcasts. StarWars.com released information right before May the 4th about a playable Dejarik board game that is going to need batteries. It's not going to produce holograms with those batteries. Dejarik, in case you need a reminder, is the chess-like game that R2-D2 and Chewbacca play on the Millennium Falcon in A New Hope.
I suggest a new strategy, R2. Let the Wookiee win.
The board game set comes with 8 special pieces that are clear plastic, and they conductively light up when placed on the board. That's going to simulate a hologram look. Probably won't be great, but it's something. But a link to the Disney store from StarWars.com that announced the game didn't work at the end of May. So that could mean the only place to buy them is going to be at a Disney park or from a reseller. Collectors. That might be something to invest in then. And if you've listened to many episodes of this podcast, you probably have heard once or twice about my affinity for the character of Luke Skywalker, and that is where I'd like to start collectible talk today.
Luke Skywalker X-Wing pilot, R5-D4, Greedo, and other action figures sold separately.
Hot Toys has a Power of the Dark Side event, and there's a collector edition Dark Empire version of Luke available for pre-order right now at the low, low price of $280. First, Dark Empire is Legends material. It's expected to ship sometime between April and September of next year. So that's strike 1 and strike 2. And also there are special edition and artisan edition versions that promise more product. But those are not available even for pre-order yet. And those are still in waitlist mode. Surely those are going to be priced even higher. So while I appreciate your effort to get more Luke out there, Disney and Lucasfilm, this is one of those money grabs that I can safely avoid.
Yoda spoke of another.
Also from Hot Toys. And some of these look really sharp. But again, it's that price tag you're promising to pay now for a figure you may not get for a year. First, we'll start with a gold chrome Clone Trooper, and it's just as it sounds. It's a Clone Trooper, all shiny gold looking, almost like an award statue. But it'll look real nice on a shelf. You want to pay $260 for it? The Sideshow Collectible website says $260. But it is also in waitlist mode right now, even though the shipping window says May 2024 to October 2024. There's a Shadow Trooper with Death Star environment currently in pre-order for $240. Similar, smaller shipping date from June to September of this year. That also looks pretty sharp. The art environment of the oval cutouts with lights, when you see it, you'll recognize it immediately. I think that's one of the nicer features. That would go well if you also have a Darth Vader or a Palpatine figure. More on that in a moment. The big ticket item this month is a Darth Maul with Sith Speeder. It's in pre-order. It ships next year. $405. There's a couple of, collector's edition, secret exclusive edition, and then there's one with one without his Phantom Menace ride for only $285. It's him with a double-bladed lightsaber. I think, though, neither of those, $285 or $405 for Darth Maul. I think the cooler collectible is Darth Sidious for pre-order at $265. So that figure comes with Force Lightning and a red lightsaber, and that will ship next year. Hot Toys also has 2 more niche characters with a $265 Obi-Wan Kenobi in Mandalorian armor, and I don't believe we ever saw any of that in live action, so this is a speculated outfit from his time during the Clone Wars. It's in waitlist mode, and then there's an Imperial Commando for $255. There's a limited edition in waitlist mode, and it's shipping from June to September for that Imperial Commando. Hasbro's Vintage Collection announced some new figures this month, a 4-pack of X-Wing pilots, all unnamed, retailing for about $55. The Retro Collection has a multi-pack for episodes 2 and 3 with Padme, Jango Fett, Mace Windu, Anakin, a Clone Trooper, and General Grievous. So $60 for $10 per character average, and that's versus the $13.75 or so for those pilots that I just mentioned that aren't modeled after live-action counterparts, no matter what the website claims about them being from the Ahsoka show. I don't recognize any of them. The listed seller for that is Hasbro Pulse through DisneyStore.com. The fancier Black Series characters have a cheaper and less detailed version of the Hot Toys Darth Sidious. Now, Black Series is still pretty high quality, but it's not as detailed as those Hot Toys. The Black Series Palpatine also has a red saber and Force Lightning, but again, there's much less detail. It's also, though, a fraction of the Hot Toys price. It's going to be available for this fall for around $25 versus $260 something. Same price and release window for a Super Battle Droid. It is listed as an Attack of the Clones version, not one from The Mandalorian. So in the box it'll say Attack of the Clones. There are some sets available as well. A Black Series Captain Enoch with Night Trooper. That's $50 available this fall, exclusive to Walmart. $25 a character. There's a Yoda and Commander Gree one, which puzzles me. Gree's head doesn't seem to be listed as an accessory and come off. And then Yoda has a Jedi Council chair, but Yoda and Commander Gree are most probably famous for the scene in Revenge of the Sith where Yoda does a flip and, likewise, it's going to be $50 this fall, $25 a character. Listed in pre-order, though, from DisneyStore.com. Then there's a Phantom Menace Duel of the Fates set. It's got Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, and Darth Maul, but it's exclusive to GameStop. Pre-orders are also around $25 per character, and that total retail price will bring it to around $75.
Just one more thing.
All right, Disney Parks news time. The voice of the narrator for Disneyland's Galaxy's Edge Fire of the Rising Moon's fireworks display has been revealed. Stephen Stanton admitted he is the one to voice the lore weaver, Tohan Lege, in a social media post on X. The show has been part of the park experience since April, and it's not really a show as much of a themed land experience. It wasn't until less than a week ago, though, that the droid mentioned by Lege in the recording made an appearance.
Welcome. My name is Tohan Lege, the Lore Weaver. In Black Spire, I found refuge and my home. And though I am long since gone, through my droid and friend, Bard, my voice and my stories live on.
Bard the droid has been referenced by the narrator, but now it's finally part of the show. The R1 series modified droid could be seen on the platform above the Black Spire Outpost spaceport most recently, and is part of the lore now of Batuu because of that recording from Lege made by Stanton. So, again, I'll explain. This show is not a special one to the land. Instead, it's themed for people who want to watch the park-wide fireworks show from the Star Wars environment instead of in front of Sleeping Beauty's castle or from a more Pixar-themed location. So you gather in Star Wars land, watch the fireworks display that's going on in the park somewhere else, and then the music and the story that's being told gives it a different experience than if you were watching it somewhere else. So Bard and the recording by Tohan Lege, made by Stephen Stanton, of course, does not appear at the Disney World Resorts Hollywood Studios Park. If you'd like to see a little bit about what I'm talking about, Walt Disney World News Today, they're a YouTube outfit, and I do watch a lot of their shows because that's a lot of the times where I'm announced some of the tips and tricks or the ideas about Star Wars Land, because they're in both parks, or actually they're in Disney parks worldwide, and it's an interesting show. And again, you can watch the whole presentation and the whole recording from Stephen Stanton on YouTube. Just seek out Walt Disney World News Today.
I think we can let him off with the warning this time.
Thanks for listening today. If I've missed something, you disagree with me, as always, you can send email to thisisthewaypodcast@gmail.com. A lot of my feedback ends up coming through Facebook, but you can also interact with This Is The Way Podcast there. And if you want a list of our links, you can find them in one place at Linktree, linktr.ee/thisisthewaypod. Thanks for joining me, Steve Lascazzo, for This Is The Way Podcast's May 2024 News Update Podcast. May the Force be with you, always.